Okay, here we go.
Okay. Um, so just for the first question, what problem were we trying to seek and solve, and what improvements were we pursuing? Our biggest problem that we were trying to address was that we're a large farm, so we grow about 20 acres of vegetables, and our farm is spread out across about a tenth of a mile range. And our soil is a gravelly loam, so it's really excessively drained. So we have highly drained soils, we were spread out, and we grow this big diversity of crops. And we were trying to find a system to remotely monitor our soil water content. Um, and we were also trying to find a system to remotely monitor temperatures in our high tunnels. We have 5 high tunnels, and we also have 3 different refrigerated spaces. Um, so going for the irrigation piece of it, we had this intention of trying to monitor our soil moisture, and if we could get to a point where we could understand how to read our data, then we could train an employee to be an irrigation manager and kind of move some of that responsibility that typically Brian and I, we are the farm owners, we handle the irrigation. So those were kind of our 2 main problems that we were trying to address with this project. Um, so it had, mixed results. The first piece was I spent a lot of time doing research on trying to find the right remote wireless system, basically. There's a lot of different systems out there that you can use. Um, they, and it's kind of this whole package thing, you've got a dashboard and you've got the equipment and you have to figure out your connectivity. So I came across the world of LoRaWAN in all of this research that I did, and LoRaWAN stands for low power wide range networking, and so it uses radio signals to transmit data instead of Wi-Fi signals. Um, and that type of network seemed to really fit fit the criteria we had, which was that we were, you know, pretty far away from the fields were pretty far away from one another. And our house is kind of in the western edge of the property. And then our far fields are like about as far away from the house as you could probably get there on the far eastern side. Um, so I didn't want to get into having to have, repeater signals all over the place. Those other like repeaters get really expensive. So I settled on finding sensors that use LoRaWAN, and LoRaWAN also, these sensors, like, it's a whole range of different sensors. They kind of consider it part of this Internet of Things, basically. So it's really good at LoRaWAN's really good at transferring small amounts of data across really wide distances. So there was both, I could get temperature signals and I could get moisture sensors with using LoRaWAN. And, probably we could expand it to monitoring pressure and, all sorts of other things if we needed to. Um, so that was like a whole deep dive and just trying to understand that. And I don't think in Montana, LoRaWAN is used that regularly. If you go to Europe, there's like public networks. And so I had to set up a network, and then I had to buy the equipment. And so kind of once I figured out that piece of it, and bought some of the equipment and realized I had the connectivity, I could just have a gateway in our house, and then I was able to get our signal at the farthest reach of our field. Then I had to install the sensors. Installing the temperature sensors was really easy, super straightforward. That whole end of it was great. I could have them in my high tunnels. I could have them in our coolers, which were inside a warehouse and then inside the cooler, and I still got readings on it. The dashboard to set up alerts was really straightforward. The alerts worked really well. They could send me a text message. They could send anyone I wanted to have on the dashboard a text message or an email if our temperatures, reached a critical level. Probably, the installing the temperature sensors was easy, but what we started to learn was that the readings were really inconsistent. So each each soil moisture sensor kind of gave its own range of readings, and they weren't uniform across sensor to sensor. So one sensor might read dry at 12 and another would read dry at 20. Um, and I think what has happened is it's a three metal prong sensor that you put into the ground. And because we have all these rocks in our soil, the rocks were interfering with the way the reading was being taken. And so that made it really challenging because you were having to be like, okay, in this tunnel, it reads dry at this, but over here, it reads dry at this. So it was really hard to gauge what was going on with our soil moisture. Yeah, that was very challenging to interpret the data. So I think, next steps there is we feel like during our installation process that we're going to have to like sift our soil and be really try to mindful of getting all of those small rocks and gravel out and try to get these sensors inserted so that we can get that uniform range across, across all sensors. So we can be like, yeah, dry is 12, depending at every location, dry is 12 basically. Yeah, that'll be our biggest challenge. I think now that we understand how the sensors work, we're set up a little bit better for next year to try to implement those moisture sensors in a more meaningful manner. And then I guess takeaways for other Montana producers. I think sensors that use lower wind technology are a really good option for Montana farms because of that long range ability of them. The sensors were relatively inexpensive. The subscription is relatively inexpensive. I think if a farm was wanting to use the moisture sensors and they had just like no rocks or gravel in their soil, I imagine that farmers would get a very consistent reading. The dashboard that works with all of these is really great. You can put charts in there. You can interpret your data in a lot of different ways. And so that piece of it is really user friendly. There's an app on your phone. So I think just really depending on what your soil conditions are would make this type of sensor applicable or not.
Yeah, that's great. And hopefully be able to dial in your irrigation needs more particularly.
Yeah, exactly. So the whole idea was because we have this like really highly drained soil, we wanted to make sure that we weren't overwatering, and we also want to make sure that we're not underwatering. And for us, that's been learning how to manage our soil moisture has been one of the larger challenges at this farm because of that excessive drainage.
Thank you. That's really very helpful. And I tell us a little bit about your farm, about Harlequin.
Sure.
In Arlee.
So Harlequin, we are in Arlee, Montana. We produce on about 20 acres of ground, and we have about 20 acres in vegetable. We grow all the classics. So tomatoes, peppers, winter squash, onions, carrots, beets. We really specialize in storage crops. So we try to harvest enough in the fall that we're able to continue to sell out of our coolers through February. We market our produce two ways: through the Western Montana Growers Co-op, which is a cooperative of farmers based in Western Montana The co-op handles all of our marketing and distribution to restaurants, grocery stores, and institutions. And then we also run a 500-member CSA program that runs 18 weeks during the summer. And then we'll do a one-time pickup in the winter of storage crops. So it's 100 pounds of produce. We hire about 8 full-time people in the summer and then a handful of part-time people as well. So, you know, at the height of the season, we might have like 12 people on payroll. And we've been in operation since 2010.
That's impressive. That's impressive. Wow. And you take time off in the winter for,
And we take time off in the winter.
yes, good.
Yeah, we have a couple employees that stick around part-time through the winter, and so we kind of will rotate through the crew of us that work in the winter so that we all have a good chunk of time off to kind of re-energize and, you know, decide to do it again the next year.
Awesome. That's great. And your experience with the LOR Foundation, anything you want to say about that? Is that something you, if they offer that grant opportunity again, is that something you think you'd be pursuing?
Yeah, working with the LOR Foundation was great. It was really easy. The application process was really easy. It was straightforward. Daniel was my contact through them. He was always very responsive. He came out to the farm this summer and we chatted about, you know, the same stuff that you and I just chatted about and some of the issues that I was having. Yeah, it was great. It was really good group to be involved with.
Wonderful. And I look forward to hearing the reports next fall after you've had a chance to, do the soil sifting piece.
Yeah. And you know, if it doesn't work this season, then it just might not be the right type of moisture sensor for us. They have sensors that are gypsum based, and we have used those in the past, but they weren't wireless compatible, and they were extremely expensive. So yeah, I hope we can figure it out. If not, we might have to go to the gypsum ones. We might just not have a choice because of the properties of our soil.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much. I think that does it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.